Boom. Crackle. Whoosh. Every year, on the night of the 4th of July, the sky over America lights up with dazzling fireworks. There are parades, and picnics, and red, white, and blue flags waving everywhere you look. But have you ever wondered, why? What happened on this day, long, long ago, that we still celebrate it today? Today, we're going to travel back in time to discover the amazing true story of how the 4th of July came to be. So let's begin. Our story starts almost 250 years ago, across a great big ocean called the Atlantic. Along the eastern coast of America, there were 13 colonies, places where people had come from far away to build new homes. The colonists were farmers, and shopkeepers, and blacksmiths, and fishermen. They worked hard, and slowly their little towns grew. People came from many places, and lived side by side. It was a land full of hope, and hard work, and brand new beginnings. But here is the important part. The colonies were not their own country. They were ruled by a faraway land across the ocean, Great Britain. And the ruler of Great Britain was a king. His name was King George III. Now, King George had spent an enormous amount of money fighting a long and costly war. And his treasure chests were running low. "I know," said the king. "The colonies in America can help pay for it. I shall make them pay new taxes." A tax is a little extra money you must pay to the government. Suddenly, the colonists had to pay extra on all sorts of everyday things. There was a tax on paper, a tax on sugar, a tax on paint, and even a tax on their favorite drink of all, tea. The colonists were not happy. Not happy at all. "This isn't fair," they cried. "We have no one to speak for us across the ocean. Nobody asked us at all." They had a saying that spread from town to town: "No taxation without representation." That was a big mouthful. It simply meant, if we have no say in the rules, then it isn't fair to make us pay. The anger grew and grew, until one chilly December night in the city of Boston, the colonists decided to do something bold. 3 great British ships sat in Boston Harbor, loaded to the brim with crates and crates of taxed tea. Under the cover of darkness, a group of colonists crept down to the docks, some of them dressed in disguises. Quietly, they climbed aboard the ships. Then, heave-ho! They tossed all that tea right over the side, splashing into the sea. Splash after splash after splash, until 340 crates of tea were bobbing in the harbor. Boston Harbor had become a giant teapot. This daring act became famous all over the world. People called it the Boston Tea Party. When King George heard the news, he was furious. He decided to punish the colonies, and send even more soldiers across the sea. These British soldiers wore bright red coats. So the colonists gave them a nickname, the Redcoats. The colonists began to train as citizen soldiers. They called themselves Minutemen, because they promised to be ready to defend their towns at a minute's notice. Then, one famous night, a man named Revere jumped on his horse and galloped through the countryside, calling out a warning. "The Redcoats are coming! The Redcoats are coming!" By dawn, the Minutemen were ready and waiting in the towns of Lexington and Concord. And there, on a misty spring morning in 1775, the very first shots of the war rang out. A war for freedom had begun. The colonists knew it would be hard. Great Britain had one of the strongest armies in the whole world. But they were fighting for something they believed in. So leaders from all 13 colonies packed their bags and traveled to the city of Philadelphia for a very important meeting. This gathering was called the Continental Congress. Together, these leaders had to make one of the biggest decisions in all of history. Should the colonies stay part of Great Britain? Or should they become a brand new country of their very own, free and independent? They argued. They debated. They talked late into the night. Being free sounded wonderful, but breaking away from a powerful king was risky and frightening. At last, they made up their minds. It was time to declare that the colonies would be free. But to do that, they needed to write it all down in a very special letter to the world. They chose a quiet, thoughtful young man named Thomas Jefferson to write it. He was only 33 years old. For days, Thomas sat at his little desk, dipping his feather pen into the ink, thinking very, very carefully about every single word. He wrote that the colonies were free. And he wrote a beautiful idea that would change the whole world. He wrote that all people are created equal, and that everyone has rights that should never be taken away, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Then wise old Benjamin Franklin and John Adams helped him polish it until every word shone just right. Finally, the great letter was ready. It was called the Declaration of Independence. And on the 4th day of July, in the year 1776, the Congress agreed to it. One by one, the leaders signed their names. A man named John Hancock signed his in great big, bold letters, so the king could read it without his spectacles. With those signatures, something brand new was born that day. A country. The United States of America. High in a tower in Philadelphia, a great bell rang out across the city to share the joyful news. Today we call it the Liberty Bell. People cheered in the streets. They rang bells, lit bonfires, and celebrated their brand new freedom. And that is the very first 4th of July. But declaring freedom and winning it are two very different things. The war was not over yet. The colonists needed a brave leader for their army. They chose a calm, steady, and honest man named George Washington. The fight was long, and very hard. One freezing winter, Washington's soldiers camped at a place called Valley Forge, with little food and thin coats. They were cold, and hungry, and tired. But they did not give up. They kept their hope alive, and they kept on going. And they got some help from a friend far away. The country of France sent ships, soldiers, and supplies to fight alongside the Americans. Year after year they fought on, until at last, at a place called Yorktown, the Americans and the French won the battle that decided it all. The great and powerful British Army finally surrendered. After 8 long years, the war was over, and America had won its freedom. Now America was a free and independent country. And a brand new country needs a brand new flag. A famous story says that a seamstress named Betsy Ross stitched one of the very first flags, with her own 2 hands. It had 13 stripes, red and white, for the 13 colonies. And a circle of 13 white stars on a field of blue. Then the leaders wrote a special set of rules for their new country, called the Constitution. And George Washington became the very first president. Now, here is something honest and important to remember. When they wrote that all people are equal, the country did not yet treat everyone that way. Enslaved people were not free. Women could not vote. And the native peoples who lived here first were treated unfairly, too. Ever since, brave people have worked hard to make that promise come true for everyone. And that important work still goes on today. And so, every single year, on the 4th of July, Americans remember that very first Independence Day. Families gather together for parades down Main Street, backyard cookouts, and big slices of watermelon. They wave little flags, sing happy songs, and paint their faces red, white, and blue. And when night falls, everyone looks up as the sky explodes with glittering fireworks, celebrating freedom, and a country that began with a single, brave idea. From 13 small colonies grew a nation of 50 states, stretching from sea to shining sea. And it all began because a group of ordinary people were brave enough to dream of freedom, and to stand up for what they believed in. So the next time you see fireworks bloom across the summer sky, you'll know the wonderful story behind them. Thank you so much for traveling back in time with us today, friends. Happy 4th of July, everyone, and keep on dreaming big.